Well, hey, Canaan family. Pastor Martin Winslow here with Pastor Justin Yeary. What's up, Justin?
Hey, guys. Not much. What's up with you?
Not much. And excited for the podcast today. The Canaan podcast, connecting you to what matters most to God, people, and purpose. We're excited to talk about a new year, Justin. What's exciting for your new year as you just kind of think ahead?
Yeah, it's a new year. I'm going to have a 1-year-old in 4 months. She's 9 months today as we're recording that. So I guess 3 months. Oh my gosh. I'm not ready for that. But yeah, she defines most of our new things.
So when did she turn 1?
April 6th.
April 6th, you have a 1-year-old.
A 1-year-old.
Okay. February 10th, I have a 16-year-old girl.
Woo!
Yeah.
Let's not talk about that. They grow up too fast.
They do. Wow. So that's exciting times for you. It's exciting times for me. Amy and I were just talking this morning. What are we going to do for her 16th birthday? It's kind of a big deal. What are you going to do for the big number 10? Cake?
I think we're going to have a cake. She really, really, really loves coffee.
Okay.
Which makes total sense if you know Kelsey and I, we have a small problem. But we switched to decaf when Kelsey was pregnant with Maven. So she's only had decaf, so no one shoot us an email.
Concerned there that maybe we should go back and edit tape here.
Yeah, no one shoot us an email. She's only had decaf, but she loves this. She loves the junk. But yeah, I think we're going to do a cake.
Okay.
I think we're going to do like a golden book themed birthday party, have family up, and get some good children's books and watch her smash her face into a cake.
So there's some things coming that are changing. She's turning 1, Maven. Anna, my daughter's turning 16. But there's some things that haven't changed from 2021. Pastor Daniel's out today. Why is he out?
Because we live in a world where people get sick. Because we need Jesus to still show back up.
Yeah, COVID-19 has hit the house of Pastor Carr and a lot of other houses.
A lot of other houses in our region, a lot of other houses in our world, and a lot of houses in our church, in our schools, and it's continuing. I think it was Brandon that made the joke to me earlier this week. So it's 2022 again, and it just feels like we're repeating the same cycle of where we were at 2 years ago, and just I think a lot of us are going like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
Yeah, Groundhog Day
again.
Yeah, here we are again, man. But there is a lot of new things, and today we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that. I know Daniel mentioned it in his sermon this last week. He talked about New Year's resolutions, and he kind of pulled this idea of, okay, this is what's typical, but then he pulled around to this other idea of what about spiritual resolutions and some things like that. But before we get to that, let's just kind of talk about some of those common resolutions that people made. This is the list from 2021 that he mentioned on Sunday. The first one he said, like, out of the number 1 votes, 44% said that they were going to exercise more.
So the number 1 top resolution was, I'm going to exercise more.
Yeah, I'm going to move my body more.
All right.
Now, did you make some kind of resolution here recently that would be in keeping with that physically?
I did. Less of a resolution, more of a I'm insane. So I did exercise more over 2021, and at the end of the year, I saw a flyer up by the park that Kelsey and I walk at during the night for a men's workout group called F3 that meets in the park at 5:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And works out for 45 minutes. And during January last year, they started a January thing called MABA. Okay. Make America Burpee Again. And the goal of MABA is to do 3,100 burpees in the month of January.
Wow.
Which comes out to 100 burpees a day.
Okay.
And you can do them all. You can do 100 a day for 31 days. You can do 200 one day and 0 the next day. There's a group of guys that did 360 on Saturday morning. So
that sounds horrible, Justin.
It sounds terrible. They did 6 burpees every minute on the minute for 60 minutes.
Okay, let's define burpee, because when most people hear that, they're like, too much Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
And they're thinking of a burp, but that's not
essentially you fall down and you get back up. I mean, right?
So today is
it's not that easy.
What's today's date? Is it the
Today's
6th?
the 6th.
So have you done 600 burpees so
I've
far?
done 630 burpees so far this year.
So you're on target.
I'm on target.
Tell you what, why don't you... Now, people at home, we don't
have video.
See this, but like, why don't you do a burpee for me?
All right. We'll be at 6:31 by the time this is over.
Yeah. Do it real quick. I just want to see the pain that you put yourself under. Are you sore at all? Okay. And you do 100 of those. I'm 45. It looks a little painful.
It's a little painful.
I did a few of those back in my college days. I don't want to do that.
You probably didn't do 3,100.
No. Are you sore at all?
Not currently.
Okay. And so what is this good for? Like, tell me, are you just burning calories here? Is this good for the whole body? Is it just
it's considered a full body exercise, right?
Okay.
So you squat down, you put your hands down, you jump back into a push-up position to a plank. Okay. You do a push-up, and then you jump back to that squat position, and then you jump up in the air. So you do a jump squat, you land, and then you just repeat. So, it's a full body motion.
Right.
You've got the same motion you do with a squat. You got the same motion you have with a chest press. So you've got two different complex movements with a core exercise in the midst of it. I want to die by about number 70 most of the time.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Well done. I think we should somehow figure out a way to get like a picture or video of that online, though, for everybody to kind of see what a burpee is. Looks painful.
Just go to YouTube.
Okay, so
type in burpee. It's pretty easy.
Okay, so for every like physical one that we're going to talk about, let's talk about a spiritual one as well.
Yeah.
So you and Kelsey, you're walking in the park. You're like, hey, let's do burpees. What else?
She's not doing
on?
burpees. She never said let's do burpees.
What else? Like, if we move to the spiritual, is there anything that kind of like you said, you know what, in 2022, I want to accomplish something here spiritually. What would that have been?
Yeah, we kind of got into it, not into it, that kind of into it, but we got into the conversation and the rhythm at the end of the year. We'd been doing some Bible readings together before Maven Grace made her appearance into the world, and then once she got here and things kind of settled down, about 3 months into it, we were going, okay, like what do we want for our little girl? How do we want our home to shape her? How do we want our relationship with her and our relationship with the Lord to shape her? And I had a lot of things going on in my head, and Kelsey's actually the one that brought it forward. Not to make anyone think that I was this super spiritual hero that was like, let's do this for our little girl. Like I was thinking those things, but she's really the one that kind of brought it up and started the wheels going. But we started last year, right before we'd put her down. Kelsey would be changing her on the floor, and then I would be sitting up and I would be doing our Bible reading with her. We've got a 2-year undated through the Bible program. We found it online. It doesn't have dates, which is it's just a little encouraging. Like if you get behind, you just pick back up, and it doesn't look like you're behind on the calendar.
Right.
And it's about 1.5 to 2 chapters a day, like pretty manageable for a family. And we'd been doing that, and now she's 9 months. She's getting ready for some routine, and so we've been doing after dinner and after our walk. We'll get home. She'll play a little bit. And then we're doing dessert and devos right now. Yeah. And so we mash up some banana for her and put a little peanut butter in that. And then,
wow, that sounds great.
Yeah, it's delicious. And then we do dessert and we do our devotional reading, and then we pray together as a family, and she goes down, and we want to be consistent in that little habit, which is something we're like, okay, it's a new year. She's kind of at a new stage of development. Like, let's transition from doing it at this point and now kind of try to install that habit, that ritual, that rhythm.
You know what I love about what you're doing with your daughter is she's not one yet, but you are already in patterns that are going to be great patterns of discipleship for her life as she grows up in your home, and you lead her to Christ, and then one day you release her to go serve Jesus Christ. So I think that is wonderful, and you can't start too early. You know, a lot of people, they get this idea that, well, when kids are little, they really don't understand things. They don't get it very much. And, you know, I catechized all of my kids out of the book, Truth and Grace Memory Book. I started when they were 3 years old.
You should define catechized, because it sounds
questions and answers, like, who made you? My kid would say, God made me. What else did God make? And they'd say, God made all things. Why did God make you in all things? For his own glory. It's kind of like a memory, a way to repeat things that are true out of God's word when they're little.
Yeah, so catechism is just a list of questions and answers that have been put together by pastors currently, and then some. There's older ones that date back hundreds of years, if not. I don't know. I'm curious what the oldest catechism is.
They catechized in the very earliest times in the churches. It might go back to I think even when you look at Philippians chapter 2, that was
the
kind
poem.
Of a poem, the Carmen Christi. So you've got all these things that were kind of building blocks, especially for people who were illiterate. It was a way to speak truth and
much
then
like
repeat
stained glass
it.
windows.
Yep, exactly.
You're teaching
they're telling
through mnemonic devices.
You got it.
The story of God.
Yeah, and I think all of those things kind of led to these conversations with my kids later out of their catechism. While they may have not understood all of the content when they were little, we were able to tuck away and put those things inside their mind to bring them out later, and they definitely were beneficial. So.
Because developmentally, little kids are sponges. They're just soaking up information.
Absolutely.
And then, you're putting logs on a fire and praying that the Spirit of God would set those things aflame. Yeah.
So, most scholars point to the Didache, which is a Greek word that means the teaching of the 12. And that was an early document, first century document that, many believed that the apostles actually wrote. It's a really cool little writing. It's got some really neat things in there about prayer and baptism and different things, but there's catechism contained inside the Didache. And again, since so many people were illiterate, in fact, people even that would make copies of the New Testament scriptures they couldn't read those things. They just copied them faithfully. But most things had to be read out loud to the congregations. And so catechism was a great way, especially when your kids are little and they can't read yet.
Which one did y'all use? Or which one are y'all using?
So there was a book by Founders Press. There's, which is a Baptist organization, and it's called Truth and Grace Memory Book. Okay. And there's 3 volumes of it. Okay. We went through volume 1 with all of our kids. It's got scriptures to memorize. It has the catechism that I mentioned, 120 questions, and then it's also got some really cool songs that you can sing with your family. Oh, fun. And so we did that with all of our kids, and they really enjoyed it. And we were committed to every single one of our kids having at least 60 of those memorized. So
that's awesome.
So it was a lot of fun too. And they could do one a week usually.
Yeah.
And then we would just kind of go back. And they can still remember them if you say them to them.
That's cool.
They're embarrassed because they're 16 and 18 years old, but they still know.
One of the ones I've come across in churches is one called New City Catechism.
I've seen it. It's great.
I think Tim Keller's church put it out up in New York, but it's free. You can access it online, and they also have apps in both the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then it's got settings for age ranges. So if you're talking with littles or you're talking with school age or teenagers, you can set it to different levels of questions and responses of different sets of complexities. And that's free. And, and then they've got some things you can purchase if you wanted to have some more physical items as well.
And you know what? I highly recommend that one because there's a little reminder feature on that'll come up each day to remind you to do it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And we did that for a little while with our older kids, but I also like you said, where it's age appropriate.
Yes.
It's age leveled.
Which sometimes can be really difficult to, as a parent, to know how to adapt something.
Yeah.
Because most of us aren't teachers, and so we've not gone to school to learn what is developmentally appropriate for different age ranges. And when an organization does it for you and does it well, it's a gift.
Right. Exactly. So let's move on. We've got another.
All right, number 2, top 5 New Year's resolution of 2021.
So the second most common that people picked.
So number 1 was exercise more.
42% were they were going to eat healthier.
Number 2 was eat healthier.
Yeah. What do you think about that one? Did you make a resolution to do that?
Did I? I don't think so.
I didn't.
I didn't last year. I picked back up using MyFitnessPal.
I do remember, though, at the end of 2021, someone walking into my office and seeing $100,000 candy bar on my desk, and they threw it away.
Sounds like a good friend.
Because they didn't want me to eat it. Do you have any recollection?
I have a vague memory of a really kind soul walking into your office and just putting temptation out of the way. I feel like Proverbs talks about a good brother doesn't let another brother stumble.
Yeah. Appreciate that, Justin. So there was that brief moment in 2021 where I ate healthy. Listen, I want to tell you something. We're just doing this on the fly here a little bit, but I want you to know something. So I was busy and I just moved on. And so that 100-gram bar stayed in my trash can. But that night in bed, I said, and my wife goes, "What's wrong?" I said, Justin came into my office today and he threw away my candy bar. Yeah, and I got to get it in the morning. I come in here in the morning and the guys had already come through and cleaned out my trash.
You're welcome.
I think you owe me $1, man.
I think I owe you $100,000.
Yeah, I'll take it. All right, so 42% said eating healthier. Now, think about that, of course, and you think of Jesus and the temptation, Matthew chapter 4, man lives not by bread alone. Uh-huh. So there is kind of like this spiritual eating healthier as well. And that's something that a lot of people make commitments. I know I made a commitment in 2022 to really try to make my morning time when I'm reading in the Word very meaningful. Sometimes you can get kind of in this, you know what, I'm going to read through the Bible in a year, or I'm going to read through the New Testament, or I'm going to hit these, and you're just trying to get to the end of what you're reading instead of really taking in and concentrating on what God is saying to you in His Word. And so I made a resolution to really get on my face before the Lord in the mornings and listen to the Word as I read it. Not be so much I want to knock off this many chapters, but like I need to hear from you, God.
So what you're saying is it's more about quality and less about quantity.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we get those two confused because, and there's a certain amount of, it's good to say, okay, I'm going to conquer my Bible in a year, but do you remember what you read?
Right, and that's a huge feat. Like if you do that, like that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's a thick book written millennia ago in multiple different cultures that's not ours. Like it's a beautiful read. It's a beautiful book. I think we all agree that it's unlike any other book that you could read, but it's a hard one.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay to say. Like it is a difficult book to read, much less like to conquer the thing in a year.
Right. Yeah. And so, you think about it. And so like, if there's this physical eating and there's this spiritual eating of God's Word, I'm thinking I want to eat healthier, meaning I really want to take in this year what the Word of God is teaching me and be thoughtful about it, really concentrate on it. And it seems like when I do slow down a little and I'm like, I'm just not knocking this off as a task to do, I really get more out of it.
Yeah.
This morning, Amy and I read Psalm 12 together, which is a short psalm, but it was really meaningful. We didn't do too much. We just did a little. We talked about it and we prayed together, and it was really special time.
Yeah. A couple questions that I know are leading questions.
Yeah.
One, do the scriptures say anywhere that you have to read the whole thing in a set amount of time?
No, not at all. In fact, right, like you said, the Bible's a collection of 66 books, right? I think it's helpful, like when you're in the New Testament and you have like a letter of Paul, say you're reading Philippians, the whole letter make more sense if you sit down and read it in one setting.
It should take about 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's 4 chapters. It's small. And so you might get a better context or a feel for it because it is a letter, right? And so it might feel better that way, but the chapter breaks are definitely in there so that, to kind of break it up into thought. They're not inspired, but they can be very helpful.
And the second leading question, does it anywhere in the scriptures tell us when or where we should read the scriptures?
No, definitely not.
So I don't have to be a morning person to be a good Christian?
Well, I didn't say that. I mean, just kidding. No, you don't. In fact, a lot of guys, and I've talked to guys through the years, you probably have as well, that I've discipled. You've got a lot of guys that are just wired that way, that are like night owls. I'm more of a morning person, and I need to start a certain way. A lot of guys aren't, though. They're like, you know what? They're just kind of coming into their own about like 10 o'clock at night. And they're thinking clearly and they're hitting on all 8 cylinders. And so I would say to those guys, man, make your night, like take some special time and really connect with Jesus.
Yeah, I found in college, and I talk to high school students and young adults like all the time, like I found in college the most helpful time for me was right when I got home from class.
Okay.
I would have my Bible sitting out on the table. I would put my backpack down, probably grab a snack, and then go read and spend some time with the Lord. Doing it in the morning, I was just trying to get to class.
Right.
And it would have been rushed and it wouldn't have been good.
Sure.
But in the afternoon, I had some space.
Yeah.
And I found that helpful and freeing.
Yeah, and we see Jesus do both. Mm-hmm. So you've got him leaving early in the morning, like in John 6, but then in John 17, the high priestly prayer is at night.
Yeah.
Right? The disciples are falling asleep. So, I don't think, Paul talks about praying without ceasing. So there's this idea that in general, that spiritual connection, I think, is always important.
Yep.
We should be always ready.
Meditate on the law of the Lord day and night.
Day and night, right. But I do think there are people who have, I'll tell you this, I get a little more condescending, and when I'm tired and I'm not as on my, I'm not thinking as clearly, the later it gets. But early morning, I'm alert, I'm ready, but other people are just different. So I would say when you're in your sweet spot, really connect to Jesus.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's about it for New Year's resolutions that we have as far as time to cover. Are you going to hit that burpee mark, you think? How many? 3,100?
3,100. I'm at 631.
Okay, so you're doing pretty good.
I'm doing pretty good. I'm ahead of the curve.
Okay.
But, it's only a few days in, which is an interesting thing. With two of those resolutions we read, the number one, I want to exercise more, and I want to eat healthier. 90+%, I think it's 92% of New Year's resolutions fail. And I think the two of those really encapsulate well a few of the reasons why.
Yeah.
One, they're not clear. There's no clarity to behind, I want to exercise more or I want to eat healthier. What does that even mean? Does it mean eating 100 grand instead of 200 grand? What is, there's no clarity in that. Yeah. And clarity brings so much confidence to a situation, and it brings so much direction of how to move forward. There's no real accountability in either of those.
Yeah.
We were meant to be communal people. And so if you've got a resolution, get clear on it. And studies show if you write it down, literally the act of writing it out gives you a 40% better chance of accomplishing the goal.
Wow. I like that.
And then if you bring someone into it, that ups your chances even more. And so if we're thinking about families, we're thinking about spiritual things, whether you're a dad or a mom with kids, or we're all kids, we've all got some kind of family.
Yeah.
If you share that, if you write it down and then you share it with someone else, all of a sudden you have a community around a common cause, and that just ups your chances.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that, kind of the pitfall of those two goals was not only were they vague, not only were they isolated, but they're pretty lofty. What are you going after? There's this whole thing called the SMART framework, and Michael Hyatt talks about a smarter framework, and goals should be risky, but not ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. And so the idea of wanting to sit down and read 5 chapters of the scriptures with my 9-month-old would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. She's not there yet. But to want to read a chapter or 2 chapters some days when they're shorter with her in a 15-minute time span, and then do a 5 sentence prayer that's pretty much the same because she's 9 months old, and that's okay. That's a win, and that's okay. And these small little changes to our routine, these small little habits add up over time into a world of change. You can change 1 degree on a compass, and over a mile, that's not too far. But over 400 miles, over 600 miles, you're way in a different place than you would have been.
Right.
And so these New Year's resolutions don't have to be moving mountains.
Yeah.
But you make a molehill one day, and a molehill the next day, and a molehill the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. They begin to add up, and you see real lasting change.
Yeah. Awesome, Justin. Thank you for sharing today, man. Awesome time. Listen, we hope that all of you attain your New Year's goals, both physical and spiritual, in this 2022 year, and you all stay healthy. And so God bless you all. We will talk to you next week on Canaan STL Podcast.